Arnold should not won. Yeah, man, I said it before you asked me.
Behind the trophies and stage smiles, bodybuilding has always had rivalries. Now, former competitors are speaking openly about grudges that never faded. From controversial wins to personal conflicts, some names still spark strong reactions, and one legend keeps coming up in the middle of it all. Shawn Ray. If you've spent any real time in the bodybuilding world, you already know the name. Shawn Ray, 5'6", 210 pounds on stage, nicknamed Sugar Shawn, for the elegance he brought to a sport that increasingly didn't care about elegance anymore. Between 1988 and 2001, Ray stepped on the Mr. Olympia stage 13 consecutive times. He finished in the top 5 12 times in a row. That kind of consistency puts him in a very short list of the most reliable competitors the sport has ever seen. He won the Arnold Classic back-to-back in 1990 and 1991. He appeared on more Flex magazine covers than any other bodybuilder in history. He was inducted into the IFBB Hall of Fame in 2007, and yet he never won the Olympia. Not once. That fact alone would have been enough to make some men bitter. But what made Shawn Ray a target for hatred from his peers wasn't the losing, it was what he did after he retired. Ray became one of the most vocal, most cutting, most unrelenting critics the sport has ever produced. He called out coaches, he called out judges, he called out athletes by name, he called out the entire structure of professional bodybuilding and didn't flinch when people fired back. His most famous quote captures it perfectly. "As much as I love the ART of bodybuilding, I hate the sport of bodybuilding so much. It's so corrupt, and they don't even try to hide it." The man who has been most consistently in his crosshairs is Coach Chad Nichols, the man behind champions like Ronnie Coleman and Big Ramy. Ray spent the better part of 20 to 30 years publicly comparing Nichols to Dr. Kevorkian, accusing him of dangerous PED and insulin protocols, and implying that his coaching methods had put athletes in serious health jeopardy. Nichols denied everything. He called it defamation. He said Ray was lying about their past interactions, but the attacks kept coming. Then, in 2023 at the Arnold Classic Expo, the feud finally boiled over in public, and it was Nichols' son Dominic who delivered the message in person.
Hey, bud.
Dave Palumbo, watching the footage unfold, put it plainly.
So you can see, Dominic Nichols is not quite as peace-loving as Chad might be, and he basically essentially threatened Shawn that if Shawn opens his mouth about his father,
he added later,
all you have to do is come across the wrong person, and you know what? These two sons of Chad's, I'm sure, love their dad more than anything.
Ray has feuded with Dexter Jackson, claiming a prime Dexter wouldn't have cracked the top 6 in the 1990s era. A comment Jackson fired back at hard, saying he would have smoked Ray in any head-to-head. He has had a long-running verbal war with Lee Priest, who has stated on record that the majority of people in the sport hate Shawn Ray as a person. And then there was the Shawn Rhoden situation. Days after Rhoden passed away from heart failure in 2021, Ray appeared on RX Muscle and made comments that the bodybuilding community viewed as deeply insensitive, referencing Rhoden's off-season weight, his continued lifestyle, and his unresolved legal troubles. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Ray later walked back his tone and clarified his relationship with Rhoden's family. Kai Green. Kai Green never retired. He's told you that himself. But what the sport did to him during his prime years, and what certain corners of the industry have continued to do to him since, is a story about a man who was perhaps the most talented bodybuilder of his era, being denied the one thing that could have defined his legacy. Born Leslie Kai Green in Brooklyn in 1975, raised through the foster care system, Green built himself into something that the sport had genuinely never seen before. 3-time Arnold Classic champion, runner-up at the Mr. Olympia 3 consecutive years from 2012 to 2014, a physique defined by monstrous leg development, extreme conditioning, and a theatrical posing style that turned each routine into a performance. And through all of it, he finished second to Phil Heath every single time. The rivalry between Kai Green and Phil Heath is still regarded as one of the most explosive in bodybuilding history. Fan bases split into Team Kai and Team Phil with a toxicity that, by Phil's own admission, exceeded anything that had come before.
So what happened with Kai? I mean, Kai's ass got more fans than me going at it with him.
The 2014 Mr. Olympia press conference was the flashpoint that everyone still talks about. Kai had signed a poster for a fan that read Mr. Olympia 2014, the same move he had made the year before. Phil noticed, and what followed was one of the most unscripted, raw confrontations in the sport's modern history. Phil opened by dedicating his potential win to his late father, who had passed away earlier that year.
I'm dedicating this Olympia win to my late father, Don Heath, who passed away in March.
Kai interrupted, and what came next was not scripted.
I respect your father. I respect anyone that has had a father. I didn't have one.
Then Phil fired back.
You know what? Enough is enough.
Negative,
enough is enough. Enough is enough.
Is the past.
The room erupted. The moment went viral within hours. When asked for 3 facts about why he could beat Phil on stage, Kai didn't hesitate.
Fact 1, we'll outweigh him by 40 pounds. Fact 2, we'll be wider. Fact 3, it's all over from the rear.
Phil's response was ice cold.
2011, 2012, and 2013.
Phil has since admitted that Friday prejudging in 2014 was genuinely close, and that the drama may have cost both of them their best conditioning heading into finals. Kai has said he believes he was the only one penalized for the confrontation, that Phil was protected, and that it cost him the Sandow. In January 2026, Dave Palumbo and Chris Aceto dedicated an entire episode of Heavy Muscle Radio to asking whether Kai Greene was the most disrespected bodybuilder ever, citing repeated industry snubs, online trolling, and old controversies being weaponized against him decade after decade. Phil Heath, 7 Sandows, 2011 through 2017, back to back to back to back to back to back to back. No man in the sport's modern era has done what Phil Heath did on that stage, and yet somehow, despite all of that, Phil Heath spent years being one of the most disliked champions the sport had ever produced. Born in Seattle in 1979, Heath was a standout shooting guard who led his high school to a state championship before earning a Division I basketball scholarship to the University of Denver. He discovered bodybuilding in 2002. 3 years later, he turned pro. By 2008, he was already placing 3rd at the Olympia in his debut, the first rookie to crack the top 3 since Flex Wheeler back in 1993. Then came the reign that changed the sport. His symmetry was called unmatched. His conditioning, year after year, was near perfect. His back, his arms, his waist-to-shoulder ratio. Analysts still argue that the 2011 to 2017 version of Phil Heath represents the most complete modern Olympia package ever assembled. So why did so many people hate him?
No one has the balls to be the villain.
Heath himself addressed it directly in interviews. He said he didn't care about being liked. He only cared about winning. He said people mistook confidence for arrogance, and for 7 years he backed up every word of it with results. But the arrogant champion narrative stuck, amplified by his portrayal in the Generation Iron documentary, amplified by the Kai Greene rivalry, amplified by a fan base that grew to genuinely resent his dominance and his no-nonsense public persona.
They made Kai Greene the underdog, the poor guy, and they made Phil Heath the cocky champion, and he's rich and he has everything.
When Phil lost the Olympia to Shawn Ray in 2018, it was one of the biggest upsets in the show's history, and the response from the bodybuilding community, from fans, from fellow pros, was, by Phil's own account, not what you would expect people to feel for a 7-time champion entering one of the hardest moments of his career. Kai Greene was one of the only people who called him Dorian Yates. Before Ronnie Coleman was lifting 800 pounds in a Texas gym before a police shift, before math became the only language judges seemed to understand, there was a quiet, terrifying man from Birmingham who arrived at the Olympia stage and changed everything. Dorian Andrew Minchez Yates, born 1962, 6-time Mr. Olympia, nicknamed the Shadow, because nobody ever saw him coming until he was already on stage and you'd already lost. Yates won the Olympia 6 straight times from 1992 to 1997. He retired as reigning champion, one of only 4 men ever to do so. His back development was, and arguably still is, the greatest the sport has ever seen. He trained with a system called Blood and Guts, 1 brutal working set per exercise, taken to absolute muscular failure 4 days a week, sessions lasting under an hour. No fluff, no second chances. You either gave everything on the first set or you wasted your time. He was reclusive. He rarely gave interviews. He trained alone in a basement gym in Birmingham called Temple Gym, while his competitors were photographed at Gold's Venice. He showed up at the Olympia, destroyed everyone, and went home. And some bodybuilders have never forgiven him for it. The complaint wasn't about Yates the man. The complaint was about what Yates the champion represented and what his dominance did to the sport. Shawn Ray, who finished second to Yates multiple times during that era, has said on camera, "I hated Dorian Yates. I wasn't a fan of his physique. He was an incomplete bodybuilder." The golden era purists believed that what made bodybuilding beautiful, the proportion, the symmetry, the artistry, began to die the moment the judges started rewarding Yates's dense, thick, granite-hard mass over everything else. They believed he opened a door that couldn't be closed, and that everything that came after, the bubble guts, the extreme weight, the declining aesthetics, traces a direct line back to that door. Yates himself, in a kind of cosmic irony, has become one of the loudest critics of where the sport ended up. He calls modern physiques short and blocky. He says the conditioning is poor. He says the judges have lost the plot. Greg Valentino. Most of the names on this list are hated because of what they did on stage. Greg Valentino is hated for what he did off it. Born in the Bronx in 1960, Valentino trained naturally for over 20 years. He competed in local shows. He owned gyms. His arms at natural peak measured around 21 inches, impressive for his height of 5'5", but proportional. He looked like a serious bodybuilder. Then somewhere in the mid-1990s, something changed. Valentino began injecting heavily, high-dose oil-based steroids directly into the muscle tissue of his biceps and triceps. The arms ballooned. The rest of his physique stayed roughly the same. What emerged was something the sport had never seen and would never quite recover its reputation from having been associated with. At the peak of his notoriety, his arms were being measured and photographed and documented as though they were a natural phenomenon. Ripley's Believe It or Not called them the world's biggest. Rich Piana. Rich Piana was by almost any traditional measure not a top-tier professional bodybuilder. He competed in the NPC. He won some regional titles in California. He never cracked the IFBB pro ranks. He never stood on an Olympia stage. And yet somehow, in the 2000s, he became one of the most recognizable faces in bodybuilding and one of the most polarizing. Born in 1970, Rich grew up surrounded by bodybuilding. His mother competed. His stepfather trained. He was in the gym as a child. By his late teens, he was winning regional titles. But where most bodybuilders aim for the Olympia stage, Piana turned toward the camera. And in the era of YouTube, that turned out to be the more powerful choice. His 5% nutrition brand, built around the idea that only 5% of people truly go all out, became a genuine commercial success. His expo lines were massive. His social media following dwarfed that of actual Olympia competitors. He built a life around being the most extreme, most transparent, most unapologetically excessive version of a bodybuilder that had ever existed. He was also openly, specifically, and at length honest about his steroid use. He talked about his cycles. He warned fans against following his example. He described nearly 30 years of heavy anabolic use, including insulin, growth hormone, and trenbolone, and critics said that honesty was itself the problem, that normalizing that level of use did real damage to young people watching. Shawn Ray publicly criticized his physique and called his look something nobody actually wanted. Reports linked Jay Cutler to strong personal dislike of Piana. Forum threads across bodybuilding's internet presence called him a phony, a circus act, a man who was embarrassing the sport in front of mainstream audiences.
The truth be told is that I think that hate is going to affect anyone eventually.
He talked about that hate directly, what it felt like to be despised for simply being who he was.
Some people just kind of let it go, and realize that it's just you're coming from, someone who's jealous and insecure.
On August 7th, 2017, Rich Piana collapsed at his home in Clearwater, Florida. He was placed in a medically induced coma. He never woke up. He died on August 25th, 2017. He was 46 years old. The autopsy found his heart and liver both twice the normal size. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined. His 5% nutrition brand is still active in 2026. Motivation clips featuring his voice and his image continue to circulate across every platform. Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer died believing he had been robbed of the greatest prize in his sport, and the evidence suggests he was probably right. Born in Philadelphia in 1951, Mentzer was an all-A student who briefly studied pre-med, served 4 years in the Air Force, and built a bodybuilding philosophy rooted in science, logic, and the application of objectivist principles borrowed from Ayn Rand. He called his system heavy duty, one working set, absolute failure, 4 to 7 days between body parts, brief, brutal. In 1978, he won the Mr. Universe with a perfect score. In 1979, he won the heavyweight division of the Mr. Olympia, again with a perfect score, but finished second overall behind Frank Zane. Then came 1980, and everything fell apart. Arnold Schwarzenegger, 5 years retired and deep into his acting career, announced a surprise comeback for the 1980 Mr. Olympia in Sydney. The backstage tension was immediate. What happened next, according to eyewitnesses including 1983 Mr. Olympia Samir Banout, was a near physical confrontation between Arnold and Mentzer before the show had even begun.
Arnold was a little bit, he knew that something wasn't right. And I know, that Arnold was a little bit feisty actually. Backstage, before the competition, he almost got in a fight with Mike Mentzer.
Banout, who was there, believed Arnold knew he wasn't in his best condition, and that the confrontation was a calculated attempt to get into Mentzer's head.
He was not 100% and had to disrupt the mentality of the competitors backstage and start playing his mind games.
Banout was direct about Arnold's condition that day. When the results were announced, Arnold was declared the winner. Mentzer finished 5th. The audience booed, an event so unprecedented at the Mr. Olympia that it has never really been explained away. CBS refused to air the contest. A veteran judge had been replaced hours before the show. The event's promoter was a personal friend of Arnold's. Mentzer spent the rest of his life, over 20 years, saying exactly what he thought about that night. At the 1980 Olympia, the only people who saw Arnold as the winner were the 7 judges and his closest friends. None of the other competitors saw him as the winner. None of the audience, or very few. Arnold did not deserve to win that Olympia, not even close. He retired immediately after the 1980 contest at age 28. He never competed again. He trained Dorian Yates in the early 1990s, directly influencing 6 Mr. Olympia titles. He wrote books. He kept talking. He died in 2001 at age 49 from heart complications, 2 days before his brother Ray. Ronnie Coleman. Let's be clear about something. Ronnie Coleman is not widely hated, not even close. He is arguably the most beloved figure the sport has ever produced. 8 Olympia titles, 26 pro wins, the most in IFBB history. A Louisiana police officer who trained before his shifts and lifted 800 pounds like it was a warm-up set, but hated in bodybuilding sometimes has less to do with the man and more to do with what he represented.
We are going to war.
In YouTube retrospectives with titles like Bodybuilding Legends hate Ronnie Coleman. Because of this, the argument isn't personal, it's philosophical. The claim, made by Golden Era, purists and some former competitors, is that Coleman took the mass monster blueprint Dorian Yates introduced and weaponized it, making the sport so extreme that it could never fully return to what it had been. Shawn Ray and others from the 1990s era have publicly critiqued the Coleman era physiques as incomplete, rewarding size at the expense of proportion, and setting a template that eventually produced distended guts, catastrophic health consequences, and the loss of the classical look that had made the sport beautiful in the first place. But Coleman himself, he doesn't carry bitterness. He carries, yeah, buddy.
When they tried to really take it away from me, oh no, ain't no resting this year, ain't no healing this year. We are going to war.
His rivalry with Jay Cutler, which produced some of the most anticipated Olympia matchups in history, was intense without being hateful.
Not bad. Nighttime and Jay came and caught me. I think it was luck.
Cutler at the Arnold Classic 2025 seminar said what most people in the sport believe.
He was an inspiration and still to millions of people. I mean, he's the greatest bodybuilder that ever lived.
Lee Haney versus Rich Gaspari. This one is different from every other entry on this list because it is not really a story about hatred at all. It is a story about what happens when 2 men push each other to the absolute edge of their potential, and one of them always comes up just short. Lee Haney, 8 Mr. Olympia titles from 1984 to 1991. The record Arnold held for years, 7 titles, broken by a quiet, deeply religious man from Spartanburg, South Carolina, who preached stimulate, don't annihilate, and walked away from the sport undefeated. He was inducted into multiple halls of fame. He became a pastor. He is 66 years old and still in remarkable shape. Rich Gaspari, the Dragon, 3-time Olympia runner-up from 1986 to 1988, winner of the very first Arnold Classic in 1989, a man who trained with a level of conditioning, striated glutes, shredded hamstrings, that the sport had genuinely never seen before at that level. He founded Gaspari Nutrition, one of the most successful supplement companies of the 2000s, and built a business empire after his career ended. The 2 men were training, partners in 1984, the year Haney won his first Olympia and Gaspari won his pro card.
We worked our tails off. It wasn't, good gracious, man, it was some crazy training. But we enjoyed every bit of it.
Haney described what he saw in Gaspari when they first trained together, a hunger he recognized because he shared it.
I saw those hunger and desire in Rich that was very unique. I mean, it's just, listen, when you're alpha dog, you know another alpha dog when you see one.
3 years running, Gaspari pushed Haney to his limits and finished second. Each time, the judging was close enough that fans and analysts still debate the results. The argument from Gaspari's supporters has always been that his conditioning, that pioneering, revolutionary, shredded-to-the-bone look, was being undervalued in favor of Haney's classical symmetry and overall balance. Gaspari himself has said he would have been a 3-time Mr. Olympia if not for Haney. He has also called Haney the greatest bodybuilder who ever lived. Both statements can be true at the same time, and that's what makes this story so interesting. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And finally, the man who built the sport, the man without whom most of these other names would never have found their way into a gym in the first place, Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger, born in Austria in 1947, 7 Mr. Olympia titles, the Austrian Oak, the face of bodybuilding to every person on earth who has never watched a Mr. Olympia, 6 Terminator films, governor of California, and the man at the center of what many still call the darkest moment in the sport's history, the hatred directed at Arnold. And it is a minority view, let's be honest, traces almost entirely back to September 1980 in Sydney, Australia. The facts are well documented at this point, and we've already covered what Samir Bannout witnessed that night. What matters is what came after. For more than 20 years, Mike Mentzer and the camp that believed the 1980 contest was fixed by judge favoritism, by wider era politics, by the promotional conflicts of interest surrounding Arnold's comeback, kept that story alive. YouTube channels with titles like Famous Bodybuilders Who Hated Arnold Schwarzenegger still surface in 2025 and rack up millions of views. The broader criticism goes like this: Arnold's close relationship with Joe Weider gave him advantages no other competitor had. His commercial value to the sport meant the machinery around it had an incentive to see him win. The entertainer-athlete model he popularized commercialized bodybuilding in ways that some old-school purists believe corrupted the competition at its core. Arnold has rarely engaged with these accusations directly in recent years. He omitted the 1980 win from his own Netflix documentary. He is focused on his legacy as a builder and ambassador rather than a defender. At age 78, he attended the 2026 Arnold Classic, now in its 38th year, and hosted a Legends seminar where he invited Hall of Famers onto the stage for a group photo. He was named the 2026 Don Wildman Commitment to Excellence Award winner by NASM. He trains daily, follows a mostly plant-based diet, and sends out his Arnold's Pump Club newsletter to millions of subscribers. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.